This webinar where I'm just going to be going over knee pain and ways that we're going to alleviate it for you or your clients. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into it because I don't really want this to be death by PowerPoint. I've tried to make it fairly short. I'm expecting this to take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. I don't want it to run longer than that. So like I said, I'm going to jump straight in. When we are talking and looking at knee pain, we first need to try and decide what is actually causing the knee pain, right? So we need to identify the root cause. Once we have identified the root cause, this is when we're going to be able to apply methods to try and fix the issue, okay? Obviously, the methods we're going to be employing are going to be dependent on the issue that we have found. Then you can either follow a kind of bog standard protocol, or you can have a personal protocol made for you, depending on your issues and what is causing your pain for you. That's probably the best way to do it, to be honest. There are really good, like at the end of this video, at these slides, I have input a short program on. It's just a 3 day per week kind of split. You can either add in to the start of your session, end of your session, or just do it as its own standalone mini session. It should only take 10 to 15 minutes. You could even do it shorter if you're really going quick. It can be run as a circuit, or it can be run as kind of like you can just go through the exercises as you would on a normal workout. There's 3 movements per day. What that program's going to do is it's going to offer you a few kind of ideas and just a bit of a glimpse into what a recovery protocol would look like for me, or for like something that I would give a client where we're trying to fix an issue with a knee pain. So when it comes to the knees, there's a lot of things that we do need to take into account. Now, a few of these are going to be the complexity of the knee function. So it is a hinge joint, and the knee itself is going to be involved in lots of different kind of activities and movements that are putting lots of stress on that joint. So if we're thinking about, especially if you're somebody that's involved in sports, okay, when you're doing any kind of sport where you're changing direction, or say you've got somebody pulling on your knee, or you've got impact on the knee directly, there's going to be a real risk of kind of an acute injury here, some kind of tear or some kind of twist that the knee just isn't going to like. It's not going to enjoy being moved in these kind of ways, or taking this impact. So what we need to do is, if that is the root cause of an injury, if it is, this is kind of like a freak issue. It's not something that's happened over time necessarily. It could just be that this is an injury that's been forced. That's going to take the knee out of that normal kind of hinge function that it wants to perform is going to be causing stress and probably going to cause some kind of injury. So just bear that in mind if you are somebody that's participating in these kind of activities. The actual pain itself that somebody will experience in the knee can come from a wide range of sources. It might not necessarily be like a direct injury. It might be kind of an overcompensation injury. It might be that, the person is not able to actually pinpoint the location of the pain. So a lot of times in the past, I've been dealing with clients, and this might not necessarily just be the knee. This could be, the elbow or the shoulder. People will tell you that they feel pain somewhere where the pain isn't actually originating from, if that makes sense. So say you're feeling pain on the anterior side of your knee. Well, you might need to address the posterior side. There might be some kind of root cause there that's causing issues on the anterior side, or you might look higher up the chain. Like I kind of said on the last point then, it's such a complex joint, and we need to kind of address all the different functions and all the different parts that are connected to it when we are trying to fix pain. Just going into a little bit more depth here about what I skimmed over a minute ago, the different kinds of actual acute injuries you could incur as a athlete, or just somebody going through day-to-day life. These aren't necessarily things that are going to just affect people that are playing these sports. It could just be that you trip, you could fall and twist your ankle and it affects your knee. There's so many different things that could happen. to cause this pain in the first place. But this is one of the main reasons why it's important we are using the methods and the protocols to ensure we have got strong joints. So we're going to be, or we're not going to be susceptible to these kind of weird little accidents in the first place. It's not nice having to think or worry day to day, going through life like, oh, I need to be careful because I might hurt my knee. You know, if you're having to worry about going on a walk through the woods or something, or say you've got kids, worrying about going and playing in the garden with your kids because you might hurt your knee, it's pathetic if we're being honest. So we need to make sure that we are employing these methods to keep your body strong. You know, it's a gift that you've been given, the ability to use your body. So make the most of it and make sure that you aren't somebody who's weak and susceptible or extremely susceptible to these different issues listed here. So the different actual causes of the pain itself can be from a lot of different things. It could be from, this is just a handful of the different options it could be: patellar tracking dysfunction, flat feet or overpronation, or hip instability. Now, necessarily, especially with the hip instability here, don't pay too much to the description. Because with like valgus knee collapse, okay, valgus knee collapse isn't necessarily a bad thing. When I was making this PowerPoint, I did want to stress this point because I didn't want anybody to read that and then think, oh, well, knee valgus is a bad thing, because it's a commonly misunderstood part or point about biomechanics. So like when people are squatting, you'll see people that are squatting and their knees will cave in and people will go, oh, this is really bad, you're going to hurt your knees. It really isn't. If we look at top athletes performing, you know, the best lifts in history, a lot of the times there's going to be a bit of knee valgus. It's not necessarily an issue. It's extremely excessive, then yeah, maybe you're gonna have some kind of problem stemming from that. But a lot of the times the body is trying to move in this way because that's how it wants to move. And when you really understand how a squat works, or, you know, a certain kind of movement like that, obviously every movement's individual, but I'm using a squat as an example here. When we get to the halfway point on a squat, your hips need to go into internal rotation anyway. So this is where we're seeing the knee valgus, but that's kind of to be expected if you're going into internal rotation at the hip. So I know I kind of got off track there just talking about the squat, but I think I just wanted to use that example because it's a common movement that pretty much is universal to anyone that does any kind of training. If you're in the gym and you're doing weight training, you're probably going to be doing some squat pattern. It's a fundamental movement. And if you're not, then this is probably why your knees hurt. So yeah, hip instability, don't worry too much about the knee valgus. So like I say, if the glute med is weak or it isn't firing as it should be, what's going to happen is this TFL is going to start trying to take over somewhat the function of the glute med, and then this is going to cause lateral instability in the knee joint, and this is going to lead to problems down the line. So if the glute med is weak, what's going to end up happening is the TFL is going to try and take over the job of the glute med. This is going to end up in the IT band pulling on the knee, like in a way that it doesn't want to be pulled, essentially. So this over time is going to cause some issues, and you could be looking at an injury down the line. And if you've already got knee pain, this might be one of the issues that's actually causing that pain. So it's worth taking a look at one of these issues. But again, this is something that once we've actually assessed the root cause, we know where we need to be looking. So when we're assessing that root cause, if we know that it's, okay, glute med is weak, we know that the TFL is probably overworked, we know that that might be causing the knee pain. So it could be one of the things that we're going to jot down and just kind of make a note of, okay, this could be causing, or one of the things that's attributing to that pain. The last factor that we're going to talk about is going to be aging. So a lot of the people watching this might be in the younger audience, so it's not going to necessarily apply to you. But if you are a little bit older, you're in your 30s or your 40s, this might apply to you. So cartilage degeneration is one of the things that we need to be aware of. It's going to happen, especially for somebody that works hard or they have like a labor job or something like that. It also could be just as common for somebody that works in an office because of the inactivity that they are maybe, you know, doing day to day for years on years, could actually create weaknesses. It could create instability in certain places, and then this might result in more cartilage wear and tear than needs to happen, just because we've got these inefficient movement patterns. And that's what you're going through life with day to day. And even though you might not be doing a lot of, walking or getting about, the little bit that you are doing, it's extremely inefficient. And then that results in, the 1,000 steps you're doing, the wear and tear that a normal person would get from that, you might get 10x just because you've got these really shit movement patterns. But that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. Decreased muscle mass. This is something that we're going to commonly see in old people. Old people are going to have, it's as you age, your muscle's going to want to go from you. It's not going to want to hang around. That is very, very easy to circumvent if you just have a basic strength training routine. So, like I'm going to explain later, with this knee protocol and knee health protocol, I am expecting you to also be following a basic strength and conditioning routine because it's kind of paramount to actually having healthy joints. Reduced proprioception. So this is something that could lead to an acute injury like I went over before. If you have bad proprioception, you're going to be more likely to trip and fall. You're going to be more likely to twist your ankle, etc., etc. These are the things that are going to be leading to the acute injuries. Cumulative microtraumas. This could be that you've been an athlete for 20, 30, 40 years, and then after all this time, your joints are finally starting to give out. For that person, we might be exploring certain options such as peptides and things like that, along with the actual, physical routine and the physical protocol. But again, every case is going to be individual, so don't take that, verbatim. That's not like what everybody should be doing. It's just something to consider if you're an older person, you've had nagging knee pain for a long time, and you're already doing everything, and it's just still not going away. Maybe consider the pharmaceutical route, but that's for another video. So now we've talked a little bit about the causes of knee pain, we're going to kind of go over some of the ways that we're going to actually prevent it or reverse you out of knee pain now. So on the first slide, we've got plyometrics. Plyometrics, I think, are one of the best ways to strengthen your knees. They are very specific to day-to-day life, and I think that literally every population should be doing them. Whether you're old, young, athlete, non-athletic, anything, you should be adding some kind of plyometrics into your weekly schedule. So when we look at the slide here now, we've got eccentric strength development, we've got improved tendon elasticity, we've got transfer to dynamic sport movements, and we've got enhanced neuromuscular coordination. So all of these different benefits have their own kind of ways that they're going to help, right? And ways that they're going to strengthen the knees. So we've got the tendon elasticity. So we're going to increase the collagen, and it's going to remodel the knees over, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of taking this impact from the plyometrics. It's going to result in stronger knees. The way I like to think about that is when we look at like a Muay Thai fighter. Muay Thai fighters have got extremely strong shins, okay, because they condition them over years. So we can do the same thing with your knees by just giving them a little bit of impact on a weekly basis, but it's just enough that we're causing a stimulus that it needs to adapt to, but it's not too much stress that we're not able to recover from it, because that then obviously is going to be another thing that might be contributing to pain. Enhanced neuromuscular coordination. So I know I'm doing these at random here, but these are the ones that I feel are the most pertinent to actually stopping knee pain, okay? So enhanced neuromuscular coordination. When we are training plyometrics, we are increasing your proprioception, okay, through the feet. So for older populations, I'm kind of aiming this at now here, they're going to be able to just have a better connection with the ground. And obviously if we're doing jump training, it's going to reduce their likelihood of trips, falls, etc., which is like the leading cause of death in a lot of old people. So transfer to dynamic sport movements. So like I said before, jumping is very specific because in a lot of sports, you do have to jump. If we're thinking basketball, tennis, bloody badminton, literally, there's so many sports where people are having to jump, okay? It's very important that as an athlete who plays those sports, you need to be training that quality. If you're not, then what do you expect is going to happen when that demand is placed upon you in a competition setting? If the body's not prepared for it, is it going to happen? The eccentric strength development, obviously I've kind of left that to last now. I feel that isn't like I said, the most pertinent. It's not going to be the one that's going to affect knee health the most. I feel as though the plyometrics, I'm doing them for the other three mainly. And for me, somebody who's, especially early 20s or younger, it's mainly for the tendon kind of benefits and the dynamic sport transference. So those are my two main reasons. It's great to increase proprioception for any population, don't get me wrong, and also increase the eccentric strength development. But I feel as though for a lot of people, the two that I just mentioned are going to be the most beneficial of results that you're actually going to be extracting from your plyometric training. So isometrics, this is one that I will be honest, I have not used massively myself or with clients. I have used it a little bit over the years to get myself out of knee pain with predominantly leg extensions and just holding them at the top. So just doing an isometric leg extension, okay, fully contracted. That for me made a big difference in knee pain, and I found it helped a lot. The clients I've used it with, they've found benefit from it. It's not something that I've continued in anybody's programming after the knee pain ceased. So it's not like something that I've kept in. I find it can just be a good thing to add in when you are actually suffering from the knee pain and when we're trying to reverse you out of it. Like I say, it can be, if you are looking for something, if you're getting bored of, like your current protocol or your current kind of knee health training, maybe add some isometrics in. It might keep it fresh. It might just keep it interesting. There's so many different things you can do with them. You can get really creative. So if we look here now, some of the benefits, just before I go into like some of the different ways we could train it, we're going to be stimulating Golgi tendon organs, so modulating pain perception through neural inhibition. Reinforces joint positioning, isometric holds at specific angles, enhance proprioception and dynamic joint control. Strengthens without movement, ideal for early rehab phases. Isometrics build muscle tension without aggravating inflamed tissues. Targets tendon stiffness, sustained tension stimulates collagen synthesis and realigns tendon fibers for improved function. So just to go over the last one there, because it's the easiest for me to remember, and I'm sure a lot of you are similar. It's just like I said on the last slide, when we're increasing collagen synthesis, it's going to be strengthening the tendons and kind of just the joints over time. I think this is one of the things that really does contribute to having strong joints and being resilient from injury over years and years and years. This is going to be built from just extremely high rep work or long isometrics or any of these kind of things that we're doing, any of the strategies we're implementing that are going to be increasing that collagen synthesis. It's going to be really taking the joint strength to another level, in my opinion. It's something that I would say has definitely been a factor of me staying relatively injury-free over quite a few years of lifting and doing different sports now. Another reason why the isometrics are really good, and I wanted to include them on this PowerPoint, is just because they are extremely accessible. So if you are somebody who has had quite a bad injury, or you experience quite a bit of pain when you get into a specific part of, the range that the knee can go into, it can be useful to train isometrics to kind of work around that pain if needs be. So when we're doing an isometric, we're going to be roughly working, I believe it's 15 degree either side of wherever you're working. So say, for example, what a common isometric I like to use if somebody's knees are hurting, just like a little warm-up, or I'll throw it in as part of a circuit. They'll sit on a box, or you could probably sit on the end of a bed and do it like that. But if you just sit with your leg at a 90 degree and you curl your leg, like you're doing a hamstring curl, into whatever implement you're sat on, this is why it needs to be a box and like not a chair. But you curl your leg into it as hard as you can. And this is, if we think about it right now, like I said, it's going to be at a 90 degree, but because the isometric train's 15 degree either side, obviously we're training not only the 90 degree that you're in, but either side of that. So if you are experiencing pain, you could go just outside of where you feel the pain, hold an isometric there, do some do some work at that point, and over time you could kind of slowly start accessing towards that pain, and it's going to be able to get a lot stronger, and you're going to kind of avoid the pain, and you can understand how this is going to massively help your recovery and reversing that pain. So we've got terminal knee extensions. I think this is quite a good little method to use when we are talking about knee health. It's something that I have done a lot of over the years, and anybody that's come to me and has had bad knees at any point, they have done a lot of these. We're talking like probably at least 1,000, but by the time they've done those 1,000, the knee pain is usually pretty much gone, if not already gone. So if we look here now, strengthens VMO activation. So the VMO is the vastus medialis oblique. It's the muscle that I don't think the camera can actually see my, no, it can't. I was hoping it'd be able to see my leg, but essentially if you look at your kneecap, if you look at people that've got big quads, on the inside of the knee, you will see like there's the kind of teardroppy looking muscle. So the actual teardrop itself is the vastus medialis, and then there's an actual, it's a separate part, and you can see it on some people. At the end, where you're meeting the knee, which is the vastus medialis oblique, and that is the part that's going to be acting on the knee. So we need to make sure that that itself is strong and it's firing correctly, because like we mentioned earlier about how the glute med, if that's not working, it can, cause some shift on the kneecap through the IT band. This can also be the same with like the VM, right? The VMO, sorry. So if the VMO is not firing right, we could be, causing shift to one side or the other because it's an imbalance. So it might not be something that presents immediately, but it's something that over years and years and years, it's going to create this wear and tear. It's just, it's adding to an inefficient movement pattern that we don't want to be forcing the body to have to try and go through. We want it to be moving in its natural way. We want the body to be in myofascial homeostasis. One of the reasons why I really like terminal knee extensions is because, just like the isometrics, they're really accessible. I like them a little bit more than isometrics personally, just because they are dynamic, and I think you can just progress them a little bit better in terms of like weight and actual just range of movement and things. So I would like to see, though, in a perfect program is both, and all of these methods combined. But before I get off track, I'll keep talking about the TKEs. So they're extremely accessible. Yeah, anybody can do these. You can literally learn it and you can show it in 60 seconds. If you can't, you're doing something wrong. Ideally, these are done with your heel raised. I like to put people on a slant board. So it's just a wooden board I made personally that's literally just on like a bit of an angle. I like to make people stand on that and do it on that, and then we'll get a band, attach the band round the squat rack, so just choke it round there, and then just put it behind the kneecap. You can either do one knee at a time or do both. You can put your hands on something if you want, but it's a lot better if you try and put all your weight through your legs and not really like support yourself. So when we're doing this, right, with the band, we can load this up quite heavy, depending on how heavy your bands are. But in my gym, we've got bands that are like that thick, and the tension's insane. So if you were to do knee extensions with those bands, you're really putting some load on the knee. But the way we've loaded it is going to make sure that we're not actually causing any wear and tear. It's not as though we're loading up a squat on our back, or we're doing some kind of front-loaded exercise, right, where the knee is having to work very hard and it's bearing the brunt of that load. When we do a banded terminal knee extension, the load's behind the knee. So it's similar to something like a leg extension. Like there's not a great deal of pressure going through the knee. This is also why it's something you're going to really commonly see in any kind of like physio recovery protocol, or something that like a doctor might give somebody with a knee issue. They're pretty much always going to have some kind of terminal knee extension in there, I would bet. So on to the next slide. Now, this one, it might seem obvious to some people, to others, not so obvious. Muscular weakness and mobility, but specifically the muscular weakness, okay? With your muscles that are surrounding the knee joint, if any of those are weak, it's a weak link in the chain, isn't it? Okay, if you've got a weak calf in comparison to the quad and the hamstring, then there might be a potential issue there. If you've got a weak quad in comparison to hamstring and calf, there might be an issue. We also need to think about things like the rectus femoris. So that's a specific head in the quad. If that's not being built, which it isn't through certain movements like squats, etc., then that could present issues down the line. So we might have to do things like leg extensions to make sure we're building that rec fem. If we look at point number 3 on this slide, it also mentions about how limited mobility could be affecting your gait mechanics, and this is very true as well. So if you do have insufficient mobility through the foot or the ankle or, just like the hip, this could be causing issues through the knee joint. You might be doing some kind of compensation strategy to make up for this inefficient mobility or the lack of access to a position. This can go hand in hand, and this is why I've put it on the same slide with the strength of a particular muscle, because sometimes it might be that that muscle just doesn't have strength in that deep range of motion, or it could be that just the specific muscle isn't strong enough to allow itself to get into the deep range of motion, if this makes sense. So yeah, I think having muscles that are strong in extremely deep ranges of motion, or the full access, the full range of motion that they have access to, is important for healthy support like joints. Next, we've got the foot, knee, hip chain kind of alignment. So like I've been going over the whole presentation now, we want to make sure that the knees and the hips and the feet are all working together how they should be. So that phrase of homeostasis, so myofascial homeostasis that I said before, we want to make sure that the body is as close to myofascial homeostasis as we can make it, to ensure that we are not experiencing undue pain and we're not kind of susceptible to injury. So the way we're going to do this is just looking at all of the different joints. So joint stacking, correct alignment, foot stability, all these kind of things. They're going to be what's affecting how strong your joints actually are and how capable they are whilst you're performing any kind of activity. This is the personal protocol that I used to actually get out of knee pain. It was something that I was suffering with quite a bit, and it was really giving me issues at the time. This was maybe 2 years ago now. I honestly thought at the time that it was something I was going to have to live with. Since then, I've had pretty much no knee pain. I might have a week here and there where my knees are a little bit kind of achy, but other than that, they've been fine. And I think that's from training, to be honest. It's just from heavy weights or whatever else. So this protocol, I'm not guaranteeing it's going to work for you, but there's a very good chance it's going to. If not, it's definitely just going to be at least a good blueprint that you can kind of go off of and take a little bit and put it into your own program that you're making or whatever. And yeah, it should help get your knees a lot stronger and hopefully get you out of pain if you are in it. So first of all, we've got the terminal knee extension on a slant board, 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps. This TKE, it just stands for terminal knee extension, right? So like I went over before, we're just going to stand on the box, and all you're going to do is just drop down a little bit, and you're just going to, you don't want to go too far with the TKEs, okay? You want to make sure you're kind of only dropping down a little bit. The best thing to do, if you just look up a video for all of these, and then you can obviously see, so yeah, just find the video and you'll see how far to go down. But yeah, if you see any videos where people are going really far, just ignore that because you shouldn't go too far. Cossack flow and then leg extension. So it's 3 sets on all of these. So what I would recommend, you could either this circuit style, so you can do one, go to the next, run it through again, do 1 set of each, obviously per circuit. Or you could just do 3 sets of 10 to 20, TKE, rest like 30 seconds to a minute in between. and then just move through that until you're finished. Or like I say, do the circuit. It's personal preference. I don't think one's better than the other. Maybe if you're trying to lose weight, do it as a circuit because it's gonna keep your heart rate a little bit higher. So day 2, glute med, hook lying hold, king RDL, contralateral load, front foot elevated split squat. Glute med, hook lying hold. Probably can't find a video of this, so I'm going to explain it. All you're going to do, you're going to lie down on the floor, you're going to get a gym bench, put it in front of you. The bench is about the right height, okay? You can use anything though, you could just use a chair. Now, you're going to lay on your back, you're going to go about 3 foot away from the bench, okay, or whatever implement you're using. You're then going to put your feet up there, and you're going to, like, you want your the bottoms of your feet facing towards each other, okay? So, like, the bottoms of your feet are going to be touching each other, right? Then you're going to let your knees just, like, drop and open. So once you've actually got your feet up on the bench and you're in this position, it should kind of look like you're making, like, almost like a diamond shape with your legs. When you do this correctly, you'll feel a stretch around your groin. That's fine, ignore that. It's going to increase in a second anyway. So then what you need to do from that position, with your arms, you just want to either put them on your stomach or just relax them at the side. They don't want to aid in this movement that you're about to do. So you're going to try to flatten your lower back onto the floor as much as you can. So you're going to have the natural kind of arch, aren't you, in your lower back when you lie down. Flatten that, and you're going to keep doing the sensation of flattening it even when it's flattened, and what's going to start to happen is your arse is going to start to lift. This is the glutes working really, really hard to put the hips into extension. This is going to start to lift your hips only a little bit, literally only maybe an inch, and then you're just going to hold that position, and this is going to light the glute meds up. If you struggle to feel it in your glute, what you can do is try to relax your feet more, and that might help you feel it a little bit more. So that's how you perform the glute med hook lying hold. Hook lying just means that your feet are pointed in, just like, and you've got that diamond kind of shape. King RDL, contralateral load. So you can probably find this on YouTube, so I won't go into too much depth. King RDL just means you're on one foot's in the air, but you don't let your foot go behind you. It just stays in line with the foot that's working. RDL, everybody knows what an RDL is. Contralateral load just means that you're holding the weight in the opposite hand of the leg that's working in this instance. So if you're on your left leg, you're going to be holding the dumbbell in your right hand. The reason we are doing that is because that's going to influence a little bit of internal rotation at the hip. This is what we want to try and, increase that stability through the hip, knee, and foot. Once we have done the King RDLs, we're on to the front foot elevated split squat. Now, the front foot elevated split squat is another movement that's going to be influencing a little bit of that internal rotation in the hips. So when you're performing it, you don't want to be on too big of an incline, I find. Maybe only literally 5 or so inches. You could vary it though. You could go quite high if you wanted. It's just whatever feels best for you. Then what you're going to want to do is the leg that's forward, as you're actually doing these split squats, you're going to want to turn your hips in towards that working leg. This is then going to influence that internal rotation, and then over time, we're going to start to restore that and keep the hips healthy. So, day 3, last day now, gar hammer raise or iso holds. It shouldn't be a plus, that should be a slash, so ignore that. Hammer raise, you will be able to find this online, so just look it up. But essentially, this is an ab training thing. It's a little bit like a hanging leg raise. You're going to want to make sure you stay at a 90 degree with this. Do not drop below the 90-90 position, okay? Or you could do iso holds. You could kind of do it right at the top. You could do, like, rather than doing reps going up and down, if you find that boring, or you want to do 1 week like that, 1 week like this, just do 1 rep where you go up and do like a 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to second, whatever second hold you want, but just hold at the top instead, rather than just doing reps, just to kind of spice it up if you're getting bored of just doing the reps, because honestly, gar hammers can get very monotonous quickly. They're not the funnest exercise. This is going to increase pelvic control, so it's going to essentially help that hip stability, and we know that's going to then affect things down the chain. Hamstring work, and whoa, I've just gone the wrong one there. excuse me. So hamstring work and walking lunges for the last two. These two are just high rep now. So the hamstring work, I just want you to literally do like 200 to 500 reps. You can either do it, so set a timer for 2 to 5 minutes and just do like banded hamstring work or just some kind of easy hamstring work for that time non-stop, or do 200 reps. And you could have a break if you needed to, because this can be quite hard depending on the exercise you pick. This is why I recommend using a band, because I think the band's going to be a little bit more forgiving for a lot of people, depending on how you set it up. Walking lunges. Lunges are amazing for not only strengthening the knees, but increasing proprioception through the feet, increasing stability at the hip, and just doing a whole host of other things. So if we're adding in 100 reps of walking lunges per week as a baseline, that's such a good baseline to ensure we've got a healthy hips, healthy knees, healthy feet. So make sure you're doing the lunges if you're following this protocol, because that's really, really important in my opinion. One of the most important. I've had so many people just do the lunges at the end of workouts, and I've had tremendous results from that. So to conclude this whole webinar, this whole kind of PowerPoint, knee resilience, we need to diagnose the root cause, we need to train the whole chain, we need to use progressive protocols, and we need to commit to consistency. So we can't treat a problem if we don't know what the problem is, so that's obviously going to be the first thing, isn't it? Second one, train the whole chain. This is something that realistically we should be doing year round anyway. You should be training everything all year, all different capabilities as much as you can, right? I understand that's not quite possible because that would just be unrealistic, but this is why problems occur. We just sometimes overlook things as well, don't we? It's quite easy to neglect certain parts of this body that we've been given. Like, it's so complex, and the lower body can do so many different things, and it's hard to keep track of whether we're doing them all. So just making sure that we are following a good program that's allowing us to train everything. And I mentioned at the start about making sure you're doing strength training and making sure you're actually following a good program on that side of things. That is going to be extremely important for making sure that not only your knees are strong, but just everything's strong. Heavy compound lifts and progressing them over time with good technique and a good rate of progression is going to be a big factor in making sure that you're not experiencing pain, especially in people that are aging. And I'm talking 25 plus. When you start getting 25 and over, if you are not lifting heavy weights and making sure that your joints are strong and your muscles are strong, you're asking for your joints to just start becoming achy, and they're just going to get worse and worse and worse. So do ensure that you're following a good and well-structured strength and conditioning program. Otherwise, I'm not saying that this rehab protocol is pointless, but you're definitely not going to ensure that you're keeping the benefits that you're getting. Just like strength training, we want to make sure we are using progressive protocols with this rehab work, with this, prehab protocol, or rehab protocol, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is for you. So progressive protocols are going to be either adding reps, adding weight, adding time under tension, if you're doing isometrics, or however you want to progress it. You can get very creative with it, okay? Don't necessarily need to see progression week to week either, so don't get too caught up if you're not constantly getting better on your terminal knee extensions. Like, it's not that big of a deal. The only thing that matters, again, this depends on the goal. For somebody that's got knee pain, the only thing that matters is your knee pain getting better? It should be doing. After 2 weeks, I would say you should probably notice a difference. Your knees should feel better, definitely. If they don't, we need to look at the program and maybe make a little bit of a change. But it can take longer with some people. We have to, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, doesn't it? But this is what every coach says. But it is the truth. Everybody is individual, and it always is just going to depend on the person. So, but I would say 2 weeks. If you're following that protocol and you've got knee pain and it hasn't improved at all, something needs to be changed. We might need to individualize it down a little bit to you, or something. So the last one's just going to be commit to consistency. None of this is going to work if you don't keep doing it. Like I said about going to the gym. It's all well and good doing a knee recovery protocol if you've got knee pain, but then if you're not trying to keep your body strong, then what do you think is going to happen when you stop? Unless you run the knee protocol year round, but then you might as well just be doing strength training because it's going to probably take up less time, it's going to make more sense, it's going to benefit you more. So if you are following a good strength training program and you've got knee pain, run a knee protocol, run a knee rehab protocol like we've discussed. After you've finished that and once your pain's gone, if you're smart and your training's good, you shouldn't have to run another knee protocol. Like, your knees should be good and the strength training that you're doing is going to be enough to maintain what you've built. So make sure you've got a good program, make sure you're doing everything you can be doing to stay out of pain and make the most of the body you've got, guys. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this. That's it for this webinar now. If you've got any questions, send me a message on Instagram or whatever platform you're seeing this on. And yeah, thanks for watching.